feel famous. That was good, guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Oh my gosh. Oh my. Okay, your guys' note sheets look different today. They don't have fill in the blanks on them. Don't worry about it. We'll get to it. I guess you can answer. If I say something and you can write down all the answers to the questions, write it down. Some of them are rhetorical. Some of them are just there to make you think. Just don't worry about the note sheets too much today. Mac already asked this, but did the storm last night wake any of you up? No. Okay, there we go. I woke up at like 4 a.m. to thunder. Guys, I slept with my window open last night, like wide open. I love sleeping with my window open, but the storm was loud. No, actually, I have like a little thing, no water in my room. It was great. But for some reason, I woke up this morning and I'm not one to look at the news. I don't care very much about the news. But literally the first thing I did when I woke up this morning was open my MacBook and look up if there were any tornadoes last night. There was. I didn't know that when I woke up. I remember when I was little, I was terrified of tornadoes. Like, we would get a warning on TV, like, there's a tornado, and it'd play that alarm. I'd be sobbing, like, bawling my eyes out, like, I'm gonna die, there's a tornado coming for me. Then I got a little bit older, and I realized that tornadoes aren't that deep. But I was reading these articles about these tornadoes, and nobody, for what I was reading so far, was like, nobody really got hurt. There were a few people in the hospital. There were a lot of 911 calls because people were freaking out. These tornadoes were a lot worse than they normally are. Some of the articles called them like monstrous and horrifying. But the further I read into this article I was reading, I read about, for context, I work at a nursing home. I have a huge heart for like elderly people. I love old people. The further I read into this article, I read a story. The only 2 fatalities last night was this old couple. They were asleep, and the tornado swept through their house, and it killed them. And just talk about it right now. It makes me so sad. But when something like that happens, my first question was, why does God let this happen? The tornadoes not only killed those 2 people, but they tore through fields. It passed by a college campus in Illinois. It was a thing of destruction, and then it killed this elderly couple. Why does God let that happen? I don't have an answer to that question. That's not what my sermon is about today. That is something that has been studied for years. It's a thing called theodicy. Not important, but it's been studied for years. Why does a good God let bad things happen? So my sermon today is going to touch on that, but I personally don't have an answer. But to start off, it's on your note sheets. When something bad happens, who do you talk to about it? Feel free to tell me. You guys don't have to sit there quietly. Anybody? Any answers? Your parents? Okay. Yes. Her. Got it. Okay, I'm gonna walk you through the book of Habakkuk today. It's 3 chapters, 3 measly old chapters in the Old Testament. It's something that we can easily flip past. It has a weird name. But Habakkuk is suffering with this question of why does God let these horrible things happen? And the book is different because it's literally just a conversation between Habakkuk and the Lord. It's Habakkuk crying, and then God's response. And then Habakkuk complains, and then God responds. So it's a minor prophet written around 610 BC. I know that date doesn't mean literally anything to you. So I made this fun little timeline. I made this myself. Everybody tell me how cute it is. Don't worry about most of it. It's not that important. All I want you to understand is that Israel split into 2. So now we have Israel and we have Judah, right? Israel in the north, Judah in the south. Assyria, doesn't matter who that is, comes in and destroys Israel. Israel's gone. So now we just have Judah in the south. Babylon, that's way up here, comes and defeats Assyria. So now Babylon is this big city. Babylon, around this time, 612 BC, was the biggest city in the world. They were this huge power. That's important. Then Habakkuk writes this book, 2 years after Assyria is defeated, Habakkuk lives in Judah. So Habakkuk lives in Judah. He just watched Babylon take down Assyria, and now Judah is feeling the threat of Babylon. Like, oh, this big city is on our border, and they just destroyed this town. What are they going to do to us? And then Babylon does end up conquering Judah. But Habakkuk's prophecy is right in between here. That's important. I'm actually going to have Aiden read scripture today. So if you just start in verse 1. They make you feel pretty famous. Just verses 1 through 4, please.
Okay. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted.
Thank you. So did anybody pick up on why Habakkuk is upset? Anybody pick up on it? No? You don't have to be right. What's your guess?
Because God is letting bad things happen.
Because God's letting bad things happen. Anybody else? Yes? Because God wasn't listening. Those are both really good. My answer, I think I have an answer for this. He doesn't see God's work. He says, how long shall I cry for help? I'm crying and I'm crying. There's destruction, there's violence, there's strife and contention, and Habakkuk just seems to miss it. Says, how long shall I cry for help, and you're just going to sit by and watch. You're just going to sit back and do nothing. He's been crying out about this. And essentially, can we go back to the passage? So remember, Habakkuk lives in Judah. And so he's talking about Judah here. Judah is filled with violence and destruction. He's upset. He wants God to come and bring justice to them. He wants them to essentially fix Judah, make them better, make them righteous, make them holy. He says somewhere in there that the law is paralyzed. So Judah would have followed God's law that he gave to them, and they've forgotten about it. It's been forgotten. The wicked surround the righteous. Aiden, I'll have you come back up. Verse 5.
Look among the nations and see wonder and be astounded. For I am doing a work in your days they would not believe if I told. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, who march through the breadth of the earth, to seize dwellings not their own. They are dreaded and fearsome. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They all come for violence, all their faces forward. They gather captives like sand. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh. They laugh at every fortress, for they pile up earth and take it. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on, guilty men whose own might is their God.
Thank you. Very confusing verse. Do any of you know what just happened? No? Good, because I'm going to explain to you. Can we go back to the slide before this one? First off, so why was Habakkuk upset? Because he didn't see God working. God says, I am doing a work in your days. I am working. I am doing something. He says, in your days. Habakkuk was saying, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to cry and cry and cry until you do something? And God says, don't worry. I am doing a work in your days. But then God goes on to say that he's raising up the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans are Babylon. Remember I told you Babylon's this big city that's going to destroy Judah. So God is raising up this big city that is coming to destroy Judah, and he's telling Habakkuk that. God himself calls them bitter and hasty. It says they're dreaded and fearsome, yet God is going to raise them up to destroy Judah. So why would God raise up this even worse nation? This Babylon's even worse than Judah. Why would God raise up the evil in Babylon? Any answers? Any guesses? Not a clue? Me either. I actually don't have an answer to this question. That's kind of the confusing part. Why is God doing this thing that we see as bad? God's raising up Babylon to destroy Judah. Can we go back to, should be the slide before this one. This confusing, he's talking about horses and leopards and the wolves. This is basically saying that Babylon's military is awesome. Babylon has the best military ever. They laugh at every fortress. They pile up the earth and take it. Babylon is infinitely worse than Judah, and yet God is raising them up. So now we see the tension in this book of Habakkuk was initially complaining, God, Judah is so bad. Come and save Judah. And God says, oh, don't worry about Judah. I'm going to raise up the Chaldeans, even though the Chaldeans are worse than Judah. What in the world is happening? Last time you have to come up, Aiden. If you could read verses 12 through 17 to hear a little bit of an answer.
Yeah, this is Habakkuk's second complaint. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die, O Lord. You have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O Rock, have established them for reproof. You who are of purer eyes than to see evil, and cannot look at wrong. Why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. He brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his dragnet, so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to his dragnet. For by them he lives in luxury, and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever?
Thank you. So this was Habakkuk's second complaint. He's complaining again. Does anyone see what he's upset about here? Why is he upset now? It's different than the first time. Anybody? Okay. He's upset now because God's answer, he does not understand God's work. I have it written down in my notes that God's answer is not what he expected. So Habakkuk complains, God answers him, and Habakkuk goes, why in the world would you do that? I don't understand why you would do that. Initially, God even said, I'm doing a work that you could not comprehend. He said, wonder and be astounded. If you go back to the first part of this, Habakkuk is, in fact, wondered and astounded, and he is in disbelief at what God just told him. God just told him that this huge nation is coming to destroy Judah. He says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. He's kind of freaking out. Why would you do something like that? God's answer is not what he expected. And then the next slide. This is more really confusing words. You make mankind like the fish of the sea, and then he's talking about hooks and dragnets. He's essentially saying the Chaldeans' ruler, the Chaldeans' leader, just takes and takes and takes, and he fills up his dragnet, which is literally like a big net that you catch fish in. He fills up this metaphorical dragnet with people and riches and power. And then he turns around and he worships his power and his people and his land and his riches. So Habakkuk is just saying again and again, the Chaldeans are evil. Babylon is evil. God, what are you doing? And then he ends it with saying, is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? God, are you going to keep letting this happen? Are you going to keep letting this ruler kill and take and steal and abuse his power? God, what are you doing? Why are you raising up the Chaldeans? So far we have Habakkuk's first complaint. He says, Judah is messed up. God, please do something. God says, don't worry. I'm raising up the Chaldeans to come and destroy you. That's how I'm going to deliver justice to Judah. And then Habakkuk says, why in the world would you do something like that? So then we get into chapter 2. And chapter 2, verse 1 says, this is Habakkuk's words, I will take my stand at my watch post and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. So Habakkuk just had this whole moment of, what in the world are you doing, God? I don't understand what you're doing. Why would you send Babylon to defeat me? And then he says, I'm going to stand here. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to wait and see what God has to say to me. He's still faithful to God. He still trusts that God is going to have a response to him. God's going to speak to him, even though he does not understand what God is doing at all. And so I can't read all of chapter 2 because we don't have the time. It's a really good chapter, I promise. If we go into verse 2, the Lord did answer him. He says, and the Lord answered me, write the vision. So Habakkuk is like seeing all this. Write the vision, make it plain on tablets so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay. Behold, his soul is puffed up, it is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. So remember, Habakkuk was saying, God, how long do I have to cry out? How long do I have to cry out until you see me, until you do something? And he says, if it seems slow, wait for it. If you're missing it, be patient. It won't delay. God works on his time, in his perfect timing. It's not going to be late. It's not going to come early. It's going to be in God's time. For still the vision awaits. God never tells him when Babylon is going to destroy Judah. He just says, be patient and wait for it to happen. That's kind of terrifying. Imagine sitting around and just knowing that Babylon someday in the future is going to destroy you. And so God then goes on to, God tells Habakkuk to be patient, and then he goes on to promise Habakkuk of things of the future. So God gives Habakkuk these 5 woes. Now, a woe, this is my definition of it, it's either a judgment, it's intense grief, it's a severe warning, or it's to announce coming destruction. And so a woe is sort of the opposite of a blessing. When God gives us a blessing, it's a promise of something good in our lives. So this is a promise of bad, really bad, but it's from God. It's ordained by God. And so he basically says, woe to those who steal from others. Woe to those who find security in their wealth. Woe to those who grow their nations by murder and violence. Woe to those who humiliate and abuse their neighbors. Woe to those who worship false gods and false idols in their money and their power. Woe to all these evils. This is a promise that he's going to deliver justice. He's going to give evil. He's going to repay evil with these woes and bring justice to both the Chaldeans and Judah. Then we get into chapter 3, which is Habakkuk's final response. So God gives him this promise, and then we get Habakkuk's final response. Chapter 3 is weird because it is both a prayer, so words to God from Habakkuk, but it's written like a psalm, like Habakkuk wrote it to read to other people, to inform them of God's words to them. It's really confusing. It's kind of awesome, though. Chapter 3, verse 2, O Lord, I have heard the report of you. I heard everything you told me, and I know that you're working. O Lord, do I fear? In the midst of the years, revive it. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. Again, God never gave him a timeline, so Habakkuk's just saying, remember mercy. Remember mercy when you bring wrath to Judah. Remember mercy when you send Babylon to destroy us. Habakkuk's still scared. He's still fearful of what is coming, but he's patient and he's trusting and he's simply praying to God for mercy. Lord, have mercy. He's still not happy with Judah. He's not fully content with what's going on right now. He might even still be confused about what God's doing, but he's trusting. He's trusting in the Lord to bring justice. We live in an unjust world. We live in a broken world. We live after the fall. Humans are broken, and sometimes we turn to violence, and we need God's mercy. We need God's justice. Throughout the rest of the prayer, there's a big emphasis on God as creator. He talks about the rivers, and he basically says that Judah wouldn't exist without God. Babylon wouldn't exist without God. We, America, wouldn't exist without God. The nations are nothing without the Lord, without our creator. Then he goes on to talk about how God in the past has protected Israel. He talks about the book of Exodus, and he talks about all these battles that God has won in the past. So why do you think that Habakkuk brings up the past in this moment? When we're talking about the coming destruction of Babylon, Habakkuk looks to the past. Why? Anybody? Can any of you remember something that God has done for you in the past? Anything good. Can be small, yeah?
He's giving me freedom.
Giving you freedom. That's pretty big. God's given most of us in this room freedom, right? Freedom through our faith. Right? Anybody? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Opportunity to wake up and choose love.
Opportunity to wake up and choose love. That's good. So when we look back and say God has done good in our lives, then we can look forward and say God will continue to do good in our lives. So Habakkuk is talking about the past to focus on the future and his future trust in God. He's patient and he's trusting. And then this next verse I have up here is probably one of my favorite verses in the whole book. I hear and my body trembles, my lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters into my bones, my legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food. The flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. I'm just going to sit right there for a minute. We'll get to that in a second. Thank you. So first off, Habakkuk is quietly waiting. Patiently, quietly waiting for all of this destruction and this violence. He's waiting for God to bring justice. Patiently, quietly. But then he talks about fig trees and fruit and olives, and it gets confusing again. Basically, in the Old Testament time, people found God's blessings through things like harvest. When they would plant their fields and they'd come to harvest, it was a blessing from God. When they'd plant a tree and it'd bear fruit, it was a blessing from God, and they could see that in their lifetime. A harvest would come and go in their lifetime. They found blessings in these short-term things. They could see the start, they could see the end, they could see God's work through it, and it was good. But here God was telling Habakkuk that this justice and this blessing was going to come in time, not telling him when. It was not short. I'm pretty sure it was 40 years until this eventually happened. So Habakkuk might have just been sitting around quietly waiting for 40 years for this justice to come. But when Babylon eventually comes and conquers Judah, there's not going to be harvest. There's not going to be trees. There's not going to be fruit. There's not going to be animals. So Habakkuk is saying that all he has left is his trust in the Lord. That's the next verse that I have up there. So all this is going to be destroyed, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places. And those are the last verses in this book. His strength was ultimately not found in the harvest or the fruit of the trees or the herd on the fields. It was found in God alone. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. Habakkuk, this specific chapter, I told you it was written like a psalm. That means that it was read out loud to people, of Habakkuk praying this out loud. So his prayer was probably read out loud to a lot of people. And I don't know if you remember, but back in chapter 2, verse 4, it says, the righteous shall live by his faith. So through this prayer, Habakkuk becomes an example of how to live by our faith. He's going through all this struggle. He's facing the coming destruction, and yet he rejoices. There's two truths that I can tell you. God is sovereign, God is just, God is graceful, he's loving, and we live in a broken world. There's a challenge that comes there where our faith in God is seen through our trust of his justice in the midst of our violence. In the midst of our violence, we must have faith that God will be just. God sent his son to die on the cross to one day eradicate evil forever. God is not going to sit and idly watch while there is evil in this world. He's going to be just. He's going to be loving. And through our faith, we seek this act of justice. But he sent us the ultimate gift of salvation, of love. And in the end, we must trust in that, even in our own difficult times. So while I don't have an answer for you of why does a good God let bad things happen, I hope that you can learn how to trust and live your life by faith. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing all of these students here today. Thank you for the worship that we had today. That was truly beautiful. I just pray that these students can walk through the hard times in their life, trusting in you, having faith in you. I pray that they can look back and see all the good that you've done in their life and trust that you will continue to do good for the rest of their lives. Thank you for sending your son to die on the cross, and thank you for your promise of one day joining heaven and earth together. Amen.